Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. And today we're going to talk about something we left last week. On last week, you were here with us, and we talked about culture and the effects on well-being, particularly during the stressful times that we have, looking at COVID and other type of violence and indications of stress in our community as it relates to trauma and the effect on our wellness. So today we're going to further talk about the subject, but what we want to do is we want to begin to look at something that's happening to us every day. And of course, we eat for the sustenance, for our meals. And so we want to look at how culture impacts that. But the main thing is the relationship to stress, trauma, and our choices and our lifestyle. So one of the statements that we know from the New England Journal of Medicine and the Institute for Health states that the health of any population is directly influenced by physical activity, political and economic climate, the lifestyle choices, of course, we make, and the availability and the access to resources. And we know then, and New England Journal of Medicine made a statement recently that for us to be mindful that our food choices are related to anxiety, trauma, and the depression that we experience is directly related to that. So we want to look at today because people think that it's a lot to talk about, but then what we're speaking about today is what? Life. This is what they call doing life. You have to eat every day. We're impacted by our culture every day. And then we want to look at what is well-being. Okay, we're going to talk about that today. We have our experts with us today, and we have they're from Harris Health, Harris Center, and we have with us Miss Keisha Walker, Mr. Ron Rios, Mr. James Keller, and Ms. Pure Reyes. And I want to say welcome this morning. And I know you're going to talk about, and we're going to have fun talking about what to do about it, what is, and from different points of view. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you.
want to ask, I want to ask the question: when we look at the topic, what comes to your mind? And I know that we all have different experiences, and I wanted you to share a little bit as we move along. When we talk about food and mood and culture, what is it that comes to your mind in terms of your experiences or how you help other people in your practices?
I think that culture basically displays so many things where how we think, how we react, the type of food that we eat, all that comes from your culture. Basically, how a culture brought us up helps us react to certain things, and that's how emotions are brought out. Um, so, starting with the culture, I mean, like you said, there's so many things that come with the culture, mood, food, well-being, so definitely, we can start with the culture and see how that goes.
Yes, yes. So
But
we know.
also, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Miss Reyes.
Well, I
Hmm.
was going to add just for what James just said. And in some cultures, it is encouraged for you to verbally express how you feel, where some other cultures, they don't really say it verbally, but whenever they're talking, it is on the tone of their voice that you can recognize. Some other ones are olfactions. I mean, like I wear my emotions. With me, you can tell when I'm happy, when I'm not too happy, because I wear my emotions. Whereas some other ones, they don't do that. They were raised differently in their culture in not to express their emotions.
Yes,
But also, it relates to food. A lot of people, whenever they're under a lot of stress, food is their comfort.
yes. Hmm.
And I think, oh, I'm sorry, good morning.
Good
I
morning.
feel that when we talk about cultural, it has a huge impact on our health, the food intakes that we eat. For instance, I grew up, eating pork, beef, chicken. Now I have eliminated that. I now do plant based. I juice. I practically maintain my health so I can function better. I think clearer. I I function better, and it really has helped me. I see a tremendous difference.
Okay. So one of the things that we know is, for example, I I've just begun to now eat food without having cornbread. Okay, and I
It's
had to, because if I culturally speaking, if I had beans, automatically I thought of cornbread. It was just not a good meal unless I had the cornbread. And if I had greens, I just, it was just automatic that I was going to have cornbread.
mhm.
So one of the things that we know is that culture. Let's go back to what Mr. Keller says. Culture then looks at our habits,
Yes.
looks at how we prioritize what is important and what is expected. We could be from different places, but the cultural practices tend to merge as it relates to where we come from. So culture can be dictated by the area, the geographic area. It could be dictated by um, your gender. It could be dictated by um, your ethnicity in terms of the linkage to what you practice in that particular group. And so our food choices and how we handle anxiety, how we depression, and all of those things relate to our well-being. And on last week, remember, we said that well-being was going to be the perception of the individual and those around them as to how well we can execute our daily functions and the sense of health and wellness that we have as an individual. Like Miss Walker said, she feels better, she thinks better, she's able to accomplish more things like that by changing her food choices. So I do know that I hate our expert, our other culture expert is not here, but we did talk about before um, how the history of food. So when I spoke of cornbread, I did not know how the African culture had merged with the Indian culture and the Hispanic culture with the prioritization of corn. Okay, so my understanding is that I love cornbread. This is what my understanding is because the association with the greens, but when the slaves came over and when it had something to do with the thought of Christopher Columbus coming over and also the slaves, both of those transportations, and the Indians teaching how to use corn. So there was another vegetable which I'm not familiar with, which I will learn um, Fio or FIOIO or something like that, which was very similar to a corn. And people would make it into like something like a hot water cornbread as we think of it now. So the practice, and it was plentiful here because the Indians taught us how to handle corn. And so the Hispanic culture really learned how to manage that. We have many tacos, derivatives, and things like that. I'm gonna let you guys help me with this. But my need for cornbread is the linkage between the slave orientation coming to America and the plentifulness of some foods and the scarcity of other foods. So in terms of resources. So the slaves then automatically learn how to take the few items when you mention pork and some other things and learn how to make what was given to them taste more palatable. Now, most of us don't even know that before the slaves came to America, there was none of this barbecue stuff going on. It was really basically vegetables. So now we had a class on that early, and so that was a eye opener. That where we're moving now is where we actually should be moving and came from. So one of the things is I thought we would talk about is begin to look at how stress and trauma formulates what we move toward as it relates to culture. Can we just talk a little bit about that and how you work with your patients or clients and begin to look at cultural practices around stress and trauma, particularly as it relates to the COVID?
Well, just kind of touching base back to what you were saying about the Native Americans. It's funny. It's interesting you're bringing that up because a lot of Mexico was full of actual Native Americans, and it is part of the American continent. So one of the main crops being produced in Mexico was maize, which is basically corn, and so it's plentiful over there. And so that's how you make. That's why the most popular item is a tortilla, you know. So you're bringing up the cornbread, but in I think in Hispanic culture, you do not miss on the corn tortilla at all. Like it's always there. You know, at this point, it's kind of your choice. You know, if you don't want to eat it, you know, but it's still available, and it's still something that's very prevalent in the Latino, Hispanic, Mexican, you know, dish. So kind of touch, and yeah, I just wanted to share that with you, you know, as well. And so kind of while you guys were talking about food and you know and well-being is I was thinking about the importance consumption alone, right, of eating and how it improves your mood after you eat, how it gives you more energy, how you know all that together, you know, it helps you to think more clearly throughout the day. And so I got, you know, as you guys were talking, I was thinking about uh, when I haven't eaten and I get cranky or whatnot, you know. And I think most of us can agree with that. That sometimes we, you know, we kind of get a little off, you know, when not eating. There's even commercials about it, you know, out, you know, on TV. But I think that eating healthy is a way to manage your mood, you know, in your daily life, you know. So thinking about, you know, culture, eating things that from our culture that are, you know, better for us than other items, you know. Um, you know, there's foods that make you feel a little heavy, you know, and that you know affects your mood. That makes you feel sluggish or you know cranky. Even that's compared to eating something that's lighter, you know, in your culture, you know, which will in general affect your well-being. Uh, so those are just things that I wanted to talk about, or you know, things that I was thinking as we're talking about food and mood and all that. So. That's all I have right now. I was just trying to share a little something.
Now, I think you're right on. You're right on particular topic because I think we should discuss how all of this, the food choices that we have, culturally speaking, how that fits into the mood and when we're stressed and when there's anxiety, how we move toward that. You know, had you ever wondered then, how is it that we have so many fast food locations in certain neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh
and
yeah.
and so yes, because the research shows that those and you also will have a high number of kidney treatment in certain neighborhoods. And one of the things that they found is that uh, persons of low income or persons in high stressed environments tend to migrate or move towards certain types of foods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the movement towards certain types of foods tend to satiate the level of anxiety or the level of frustration, so we think, temporarily, okay, at that particular time. But the drive is to do that. The drive is to move toward that. So if our doctor was on here, Dr. Atkins, he'll be on at the end of the month. He would probably say that sugar tends to be the driving force, and fats are related to the temporary sense of well-being that we're seeking.
Yes.
Right.
So
Yeah. And then yeah, and you know, just out of talking about sugar, you know, that was another thing that I was thinking about as well because I am a diabetic, and so I know firsthand that there are foods that tend to raise your sugar up so high, and that ultimately, it affects your energy levels, it affects your moods, it affects makes you feel irritable, makes you feel tired, or sometimes even depressed when you don't eat healthy. So it's interesting you're bringing that up, because that's very, very true. It's, you have to be very mindful of what you eat, and it becomes even more sensitive whenever you have a condition like diabetes. But it also shows the effects. That's more of an amplified reaction to what somebody who doesn't have a condition, still encounters. So even though they may not encounter the irritableness as bad as a diabetic, that food still, is able to do that to you, or makes you feel a certain way after consuming it. So it's very true what you're saying, and it's very interesting about the strategic placement of fast food restaurants within minority communities.
Well,
I think
how many people have you heard that's stressed out eating healthy food? The craving. I haven't heard any that crave vegetables and fruits when they're stressed out. So definitely, that plays a big part on people that are going through stress or trauma, anything that they're experiencing at that time. Of course, wherever they can get their hands on that's fast, quick, and most of the time it's going to be unhealthy, and that plays a huge part on their health. If they're not exercising, if they're not taking care of their body or their well-being, I mean, that leads to so much other things, Dr. Lewis, that we can open up.
yes, yes. And I think that probably looking at culture, so to speak, certain groups of people that we're speaking about, low income families, tend to come from Hispanic, African American, more so, because in terms of being more impacted by the COVID, more impacted by limited food choices due to income, which means that there is what you're saying, a drive toward getting something fast. Because what? There's also a limit of time availability,
Mhm.
especially if they have children. So they're looking for something until the behaviors change, maybe, or the habits of preparation, food prep, that is moved toward faster foods in order to accommodate the time limitation.
Correct.
So time management is also something that we encourage or we try to help um, introduce, to persons who are going through, particularly this period of COVID, and also the anger. So anger, those emotions of anger are also associated with food choices. And so people are going like, no, no. And so, but when we began to look at, I think we talked last week about changes in the brain, in the mind, and how people think about things and how that can, um, how we respond to situations, increases the neurotransmitters begin to change, and that means that the anger is coming along. So we need those foods. We're looking, we're seeking crunchy foods, spicy foods. You know what I'm talking about. You know what you do. So, so they tell me that hot sauce is a big thing in communities that have high anxiety. So this was something that I read on some article. I can't cite it seemed like it was somebody's name, Schmidt, Schmith or something. But it was looking at spicy foods and hot sauce and how that actually was a calming, of gravitating toward those foods, particularly during the COVID. And I don't know if you all have any experiences with that in general or during the COVID as to how it relates to calming the behavior or the food seeking behavior.
Yeah, for my experience had been with the sweets, more when with the spicy. And actually sweets talk to me. Um, whenever I'm not comfortable or whenever I'm going through something, Coca-Cola is my drink that I go to. And also Mexican sweet bread. Uh, Maybe because it's my culture, but that is me. And but also with the people that I've been talking to lately, that it seems to be drawn to more sweets than before during this pandemic. And yeah, and that culture will influence big time on the food choices that we make. But also, with some other people now working from home, a lot of home cooking is happening, or at least in my household, it is. No, we cook at least 5 days out of the 7 days of the week, which before it was the other way around. We will eat out 5 days and then cook at home only 2 days. And I can see the benefits of now having our home cooked meals, because now we get to sit together and eat. And then we also eating healthier. And I think that is something that is also changing. So whenever I go to the grocery store, I see more people buying more vegetables and fruits. And so that's also something good that is happening during this pandemic. The more people are spending more time together because so many people still working from home. I
That's
know the
good.
four of us, we're still working from home. We're still not going to the office.
Yes, yes. Same here. Same here. And I noticed that I'm not eating any fried foods.
Yeah.
So now I'm working on baking. I
Yes.
um I have not been eating meat. I have been working on not eating like beef and pork for a long time. And so now, and I have not been really eating chicken and too much of that. I had been eating more vegetables and I think nuts, or nuts and whatever. But talking about a mood, they find that texture has a lot to do with satisfying um, anger kinds of mood, and smooth texture of food um, tends to be related to the driving force of calmer food, supposedly.
Mm.
Sweets for anxiety, and anger more intense would be the crunchy food. And
Mm.
I know that I need to, when I'm working on a task that's real difficult, I find myself crunching on nuts. So now I have to really choose the nuts that I'm going to crunch on. And so now I have to choose more of a seeds, and move away from the high fatty nuts, and maybe use more almonds as opposed to cashew. Okay, because I've been noting. So they said don't keep a food journal, keep a food mood response.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, instead of itemizing the food, itemize the frequency of what you're doing around your emotions. Okay, and that seems to be working a little bit.
Okay.
To identify what it is that you're eating. So I was going to ask a question. What what have either of you ever paid attention to how you work with your population, your groups, your people, your persons, as it relates to food, as it relates to what you're experiencing? Like when what choices you make in terms of interventions, the activity, individual versus group, the things you talk about, um, in terms of what you feel or you're experiencing. Now, Ms. Reyes talked about sugar,
Well,
but
I think in general, like I've been trying to help a lot of the community as far as finding resources for finding food in general. I know one of my assigned locations is very dry in terms of getting help from the community or from the city as far as and attaining affordable groceries. And it was shocking to me because I think I mentioned in the last one I attended here with you was that I'm I'm kind of in a group, kind of a coalition, local coalition where help low income individuals with groceries. I came to find out that there was certain areas in the city of Houston where you know, organizations weren't as prevalent there, and the community in that area was actually very low income. And so, in general, I've been trying to find people, help to find people, sorry, I've been trying to help people find, pantries, that offer either discounted or, free produce. And so, I find like you and like I'm tying the ends as you're talking as we're going through this video, I'm thinking, wow, like, you're right. Like, whenever you go to these areas, all this other stuff is readily available. You got the dollar burgers, you got the, $2 baskets, $4 baskets, but yet it's fun. It's amazing how they don't have quality produce in these communities, and it's amazing how these certain communities are being overlooked by bigger organizations that should be helping them out. So, this coalition has actually helped to bring awareness to these certain communities, and to help to bring pantries. And so what I've been kind of doing was helping to provide them with that resource information, and we have talked about things that we've spoken today about, foods in our culture that may not be as healthy to eat, or things that are better for us to eat, and how things affect community. Specifically talking about Latinos, I bring up the fact about diabetes a lot because it's very prevalent in our culture. Diabetes is huge. A lot of people, I've had many relatives who passed away from heart disease due to diabetes and cholesterol and things of that sort. So it's something that's very, close to me, but it's something that I know that is very close to other people over of at least of my culture as well. That those are things that I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but it's something that I thought was very important to
Oh,
many.
yes, yes, yes. Talking about that.
Hmm.
I didn't hear you.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I answered your question on that, but that's something that I wanted to, express as well, was that is, healthy foods are kind of not available in, these communities as well.
And a side note, Dr. Lewis, I don't know if you noticed that the fast foods have dropped their prices down to where it's cheaper sometimes to grab a $1 burger instead of cooking now.
Yes.
So I think that they've gotten smart enough to where, they're helping families where, you know, let's not cook if we can get cheaper food at a fast food spot.
Cheaper and faster.
Yes.
Cheaper and faster. But also, it has, they're not talking about the unhealthy components. Speaking of diabetes, that there is a direct linkage between illness and food intake,
Yeah.
and how often it's that we eat it, and what it's doing to the cells of our bodies. So I know we're going to have some physicians on to really talk about that. But as we move towards stress, if you have diabetes, diabetes is directly related to stress. And most people are not thinking that it's related to that. It's the choice of food, yes. But we're looking at the connection between the culture, the choice of food, and also the comorbidity of illnesses as it relates to well being. And so there's a direct relationship, a correlation rather, between the trauma, the stress, and the diabetes. It exacerbates. Um, on the last on a couple of shows ago, we had one of the doctors on to talk about how that changes the cell and the chemicals in the cell when we eat those foods, and that's exactly bringing on the cancer and the diabetes. And when we increase the food, so if you think about it in the brain, they got all these little the neurotransmitters, serotonin and acetylcholine and all of that. But when we're eating, all of those things are running a pathway through the brain and actually affecting the chemistry of the body. So it's difficult to consciously, unless we're practicing, make a choice because we're working against the drug, the chemical drive, okay, if we the need for it. So it's almost like what, a drug or something. so, so if you think about it, so so then we would have to what? We would have to change the settings around us. Like Miss Reyes was saying, we'd have to cook from home. We'd have to be around people who would actually what, reinforce eating, like having a thing at work, or calling up each other to say, what did you eat today? And so we found in our group that when we have buddy systems, that people, that we all are healthier. Okay, because the buddy is asking you, what are you going to eat? What have you planned to eat? So that was another thing that we could look at as we're talking along, the possibility of working with clients um, during the COVID and other things, to look at the buddy system of doing that. And I think maybe if we could have some people on, I think maybe we're gonna see if we could talk to a group and get their response while we're talking, so we could see what in fact would be that they would try. Okay, I think that that's going to be good. We're going to try to do that. But the other thing that I wanted to see what your thoughts about, I don't know if you use or do you use any kind of food assessment when you're working with your client, like eating behaviors, other than what Mr. Rios said, which I want to go back to soon, about the access to healthy foods. But I wanted to know, do you use any assessment or screening or intervention with persons during your treatment with clients or your training with them?
I think that if they're speaking to a therapist um, from our organization, they're working hand in hand to where if it has where food is involved in their stress, where we know that when you're stressed out, you tend to eat more. And also, we also know that I feel that on our level as a counselors, we don't get into that depth where we try to diagnose what's going on with them as far as uh, any kind of um, I guess issues to a point where we feel that it's deeper for a therapist to handle. What we handle is the outside surface, where we can help them immediately. If they need the resources, if they need that immediate counseling, we're there for them. But if they need a lot more, then we do recommend them to our therapist where they can reach them, deeper, whatever they're dealing with at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah, we
Another
totally.
challenge, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Another challenge when we talk about an individual health, we definitely try to find or provide some form of resource. Of course, health can be definitely a stress factor. So, with that being said, we try to reach out to them and see what type of service that individual can benefit from. With the economy having financial crisis, we try to kind of connect them with service that we know they can benefit from. And
I
health is definitely a major issue. And, if you don't have the resource to reach out, it's like, how would that person, get their medical condition under control? So we try to provide them with any type of resource that we know they can benefit from.
Mhm.
Because that's what mainly we do. We do a lot of resources to our clients, to the population that we are currently serving. And also, if they should need, like they were saying, if they should need a deeper assessment on the mental health, we centrally do those referrals as well.
So how what have you found when you follow up? Do you follow up with them? How do you find out which how the resources of benefit them?
So,
One, the mainly follow up that we do, especially whenever we connect them to a food bank or whenever they're seeking financial assistance to pay for the rent of their mortgage. Those are mainly the follow ups that we do. But also keep in mind, we don't keep records of the population that we serve.
Oh,
And because we are working with a grant, we are with the Texans Recovering Together through the Harris Center. And so our job is really to help them with immediate assistance that they may need. So,
okay.
and but in the past, I did work with people who we had to follow up once a month, twice a month, or when I was at jail diversion on a daily basis. Sometimes we work with a client the whole day, 10, 12 hours, because we will take the client to the security office to get a gold card, be sure that take them to the doctor, go to the pharmacy with them and get the medications. But that was a different part from the Harris Center. But currently, we mainly work with resources and referrals.
And so people, so in other words, I was listening to Mr. Rios about finding that scarcity of food. When you provide the resources to them, have you found any kind of patterns or any other than location of where they are? You know,
Like they were, yeah, like they were expressing. We, as Texans Recovering Together, as a program, we kind of just we go looking for individuals who may need help, and at times they come out. Many times they come out and reach out to us to find. So again, like, and just kind of try and answer your question. Like Woody says, we don't keep demographic information or any type of personal
uh-huh.
information. So I think that for me personally, it's kind of hard to try and track, you know, trends or anything of that sort. So the only thing that I can really say is that it seems like minority communities, I mean, again, geographically speaking, tend to be the ones mostly affected finding healthy resources or things of that sort. And I'm trying to think about anything else I could possibly point my finger to, but really it's a geographic thing. I mean, it seems to be that people areas that are low income are very affected by the availability of resources in the community.
And so, another thing that the persons that seem to come to my office or need of assistance generally tend to have high stress or some form of trauma when I get a chance to see them. But when we talk about food or anything, what I'm finding is that it's a whole idea of not having food, like an insecurity of fear of not being able to access because of the low income, because of the healthy food around, but the insecurity itself of not having food seems to be high.
Yeah.
Okay, you see what I'm saying? And so it's a fear. That's one thing that I noticed. And the second thing that I've for the people who walk in, we tend to be overweight
Yeah.
because of that. So we then consume, it seems to be a trend toward consuming the food because you feel that you may not have what you want unconsciously or consciously, okay, at the end of the day or tomorrow. It seems like, let me go on and eat this now. Let me eat that. And then I'm writing down these things as people come to my office. And the other thing is that there tends to be a high level of fear or loneliness about other kinds of losses. Okay, so like
Mm.
for example, Mr. Rios, when they would come in about needing additional food, it would also be a loss of maybe with CPS their children, or maybe a loss of their home or their apartment or something like that. And so then the food choice or the need increases as also the fear of the other, right? So it seems to be a correlation around these losses and these anxieties, which increases more anxiety and more fear.
Yes.
So
Right.
I think that we're talking about something, and when I started, we talked about the availability of the access of resources, which I think you guys are really fulfilling um, that at every corner. I think that that's a big thing, and then the lifestyle choices through the training and being
Mm.
able to slow down. That was another thing about lifestyle choices. How we choose the food is based on the fear. So, so one of the things that we might want to start looking at, I think, is when people come in to do the resources, maybe just talking to them about maybe how that relates to what they've been thinking about it. What have they tried to do? And maybe sometimes there are little things that we can give them. When I give them, at least I do, when I give them something about where to go for food, I give them something on not only how to prepare it differently, but which ones to choose. Like if they're getting canned goods, a lot of time you don't get fresh food. What to do if
Right.
you get a lot of canned goods so that you can make healthier decisions for your family and things like that. That has a lot to do with mental health around the salts
Yes.
and diabetes and things like that.
Yeah, and that is something that we provided to be when we were allowed to be out on the field. That is something that we would provide as well. Was cookbooks. I don't know if Woody remembers us giving out
Yes.
cookbooks during or outreach efforts. And you're right. I was just I'm starting to think about these things. Things are coming to mind now. And yeah, we would send people out to different food banks in their area, not just the major ones, but there are also others available in communities, And so, along with that referral, we would also give them this thick, nice, thick, cool looking, binder full of recipes.
Recipe. Yes.
So, yeah, that's a pretty cool point you're hitting there because you're right. It's very important to be able to provide not only provide them with a resource, but kind of not to exactly teach them, but guide them into how to utilizing those resources as well.
Yes. And of
Yes.
course, we have them in Spanish and in English. So
Oh,
that
that's
was,
right. Oh, I would. Can I have one of those? I'd like to see one. I'd like to have one.
I do have some.
Okay.
Okay, very
And
good. I
they're
would like.
really nice. They're about this thick. Yeah. I
Hmm.
don't know if I had them in Spanish, but I do have some of them.
Okay, then
I'll be
yes.
sure that I reach out to you and I will let you have. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And I would just like to see it and share it with on the show. You know how to share some things with people. I think
Wait, you
that would
give me a
be
minute. Let me go and get one. I'll be right back.
and
okay then.
and,
I
and
think that that's part of the economic climate that
yes.
we need to
Yes.
begin to look at, because if we can begin to look at that as they can save money, or looking at the whole idea of having limited income. So therefore, if you have a way of preparing your food using less, then but also being healthy, that's a real big key point. As we talk about diabetes, the comorbidity with diabetes and high blood pressure and those, and I think that that's real important. Yes.
Yes.
And
Unfortunately,
also making it attractive to them because some people think of healthy, all they think of those salads, and some people are like, oh, I don't want to eat salads, And so there are multiple different ways to making a healthy meal. So you're right.
Yes.
This book, and yeah,
Oh,
there you
yeah,
go. That's the
that would
book.
be nice in
Yeah.
both English. I have a lot of
Yeah.
Spanish speaking patients.
I have them
Yes.
in Spanish. I have about 20 of them. And
Uh-huh.
also, what we provide them is with a guy of preparation for whatever. And then we always gave them a little bag like this.
Oh yeah, that's really
That it
nice.
has a lot of goodies, has a pen, has a little light. So we try to provide them with a lot of little things every time we went outside in the community.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very good. That's very thoughtful.
Yeah, but like I said, the cookbooks, they're really, really nice. Actually, I use some of the recipes. They're
Yes.
really easy to make.
Okay. Well, I have an idea too, and then we can talk about that idea coming up real soon.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I'll get a chance to talk about it. So before we close, I do want to have the whole idea of health issues and inflammation. So we need to keep this in mind. If we could just get the idea of the relationship of the food as it relates to stress and trauma and things that we could do about it. And if we keep in our mind that during stress that the cells will become inflamed
Yes.
and the tissues in the body, if we could look at it that. So I keep in mind that as our physicians talk to us. And the thing is that what we eat and we take in further inflames the body. So they say that then once the body reaches a certain inflammation level, then this is when we begin to have the chronic diseases and illnesses as it attaches to the body, the cells and the tissues and etc. as it grows. So one of the ways to help ourselves then, what we're saying, is to decrease the sugar and find natural sugar alternatives and begin to change our taste around that, particularly during the COVID, because the more stress and trauma that we have is the more the inflammation increases as we change the foods that bring on the inflammation. So mindful eating, we talked about looking at the food and slowing down. We didn't tend the calmer we are, the less foods we eat that leads to inflammation because we're calmer. We have a less of a drive. So that would be one, to be mindful and to be more relaxed. The other thing is to not keep a what count of what we eat, would be to begin to look at our mood and what are we driven to eat so that we can begin to have more of a control over that. And you all can help me on coming up with, and I think the food book, the recipes, putting together recipes that would help satiate or satisfy our need in a healthy manner. You know, like I find that if I eat legumes or beans of any sort, that right away I have less of a need to eat other kinds of things. If I eat greens or cabbage or whatever, I have less of a drive to eat other kinds of, the more I eat green leafy foods, I have less of a drive to eat more sweets or something like that. And then I heard and I read in terms of decreasing the, and you all can comment on this or summarize this, um, decrease the drive would be salmon, omega-3 fatty acids, you know, like fatty fish of anything, and as I say, vegetables. Those things in the blood tend to make us healthier, think better, have a sense of well-being, and we tend to eat less sweets when we eat that.
Mm-hmm.
See, and so I thought this would be interesting for us to see what we come up with this week if we keep our mood journal and we began to eat those foods. Maybe when we talk to each other next, give ourselves maybe 30 to 45 days and we'll see what we come up with.
Okay.
Okay, we could track and we could share that from a personal perspective with our group. So I'm just going to quickly ask if you have anything you'd like to help add on this topic before we close so we can leave the audience with some additional information or resources.
Um, I think that people recognize food as comfort, so that when you're feeling that stress, the anxiety, the depression, all that goes hand in hand with obesity.
Right.
So I also will recommend that when people are feeling stressed, maybe coming up with different coping skills instead of eating. Maybe coming up with something else when they're feeling stressed to take their mind off of something besides, first thing they think about is food.
Mm-hmm.
So, I challenge, others out there to use another coping mechanism instead of eating all the time when feeling stressed out.
Like dancing in place or something.
Or go
Yes.
walking
Or
or
go walking, yes.
something.
Or work in the garden if you have one. Maybe cleaning, because sometimes whenever people have a lot of not organized, maybe organizing their living quarters. That is another way to help with that. And also when eating is making better choices,
Yes.
eating healthier. Like I'm with you, I'm eating less meat. And we tend to eat now more fish, more salmon per se. And so we just need to be conscious of what we do, especially whenever we're not feeling that well, whenever we are under a lot of stress. It's just trying to learn how to deal differently, like James said. Just going for a walk, dance, listen to some soothing music, and or talking to people. For me, talking it helps me. So it's just also writing, write down whatever you're dealing with, and that can also be helpful.
Also, I think one of the things I recognize for myself is that I used to drink a lot of sweet tea and juice. And so what I did was now when I shop, only thing I have is water. I don't buy the juice or sweet teas like that anymore. So that way I don't have access to it. So that might be something that you keep in mind too. If you don't have access to it, you're not gonna
Yeah.
be able.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But also planning your meals. Something that I do before I go grocery shopping, I had the list of what I'm going to be buying because I already had planned the menus for the days to come. And
Yes.
that also helps a great deal. And then it's kind of, I don't choose to buy Coca-Colas or chips or things like that. Because if I don't not going to use it in whatever I'm going to cook, I'm not going to buy it.
Yes. Very good. Very
So meal
good.
planning, it is important.
Okay, well, everybody's given some really good suggestions through these discussions and whatever to change the lifestyle toward health and wellness and increase a sense of well-being and whatever. Um, One of the things that somebody mentioned, drinks. So I do want to say that I read an article that says if we could increase our green tea intake, that it would actually help decrease the inflammation or the drive toward eating unhealthy foods as well. And I think we'll start next week by looking at our belief. We're going to be looking at belief building toward stability. Okay. I want to thank you. And I know that it'll be a few weeks before we see each other, but I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank the Harris Center for allowing you to be here early this morning. And I know that you'll be able to look at this, and our group, our audience will be able to see this on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. at Houston, www.houstonpublicaccesstv.com, and later on YouTube as well. So I want to thank you for being here early this morning. And audience, I would like to thank you for being with us on Mending Threads. And I do want you to recognize that it is not the circumstances that you meet, it is the manner in which you respond that determines health, happiness, and success. And please renew your beliefs, rebuild your faith, and reconnect with families and communities. And make sure that you please go on our website. We spoke of food and mood today, and we'll be training, and we have a scholarship $3,000 scholarship. You only have to pay the fees and taxes, minimum 150 donation. You can be trained as a coach to help other people, and which you can do for yourself, or you can work with other people to do that. But it's going to help improve the community and help you. Go to our website, express your interest, email us at ips.health1@gmail.com, and let us know of your interest. Give us your name, your phone number, and how we can contact you. It's going to be very important that we move toward helping other people in our community as well as ourselves. I'm going to look forward to seeing you on next week, same time, same place. Thank you, and have a great day.